your friend and my friend and a friend of America and the world. And I've had him on the Father State before, author Kwon Lee. He is a Korean American fine artist. He has been on the Father State and my radio show before. He spoke at our men's conference in Orlando, Florida, and we talked before about art, family, black and Asian violence, and more. Arthur, welcome back, man.
Hey, good to see you, Jesse. It's been a while.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and all those good things.
Merry Christmas.
How have you been?
Good. When your producer contacted me, I was like, we're pretty much on the same page in regards to like how to fix the West and masculinity and the vitality of bringing fathers back into the equation. So I was like, I don't know what we're going to really talk about because we pretty much have there's not much disagreement, my friend.
Yeah, but you're a smart guy. I really I'm not like a big art guy, and I'm not like really into it. But your work is amazing, and so I want people to see even more of the work that you're doing, and kind of bring them up to date about that. And but first, you said something very interesting during the Fallen State interview, and I want to play that soundbite and get a response
Okay.
from you about it. This is from the Fallen State.
There's actually roots, political roots, as to what type of art people make.
Right.
And people are actually blind to this, but you can just look at the artist right in front of you. And I would say that if you're grew up with a father at home, more conservative background, you're going to make work that actually has a certain standard,
Yeah.
a pedagogical, universal standards versus aesthetic relativity. That's what I would say. And the social justice warriors in the left, they believe everything is this mentality of deconstructionism.
Yeah.
Right? Everything is relative. It's all miasmic and mystical. Right? So that's going to play out aesthetically as well.
Yeah.
So even the art they make, it's vague and it can be anything. But if you look at artwork produced by conservatives, they make work that have credibility behind it, and there's techniques and skills passed down. So for me, I was attracted to that sort of interpretation of history through modern means.
Amazing. So do you still believe that art is based on those things?
Yeah, I mean, art is a reflection of the values that a person has in their heart. And what I would say is that, my whole mission in life is to get people that are on the side of good to care about beauty, and that is a blanket term. We can be talking about beautiful architecture, marble sculptures, paintings, but reconnecting with the creative spirit and utilizing art and the talent so we can point towards that which is good. That's my whole mission. That's what I care about. That's what I basically spend my life to try to encourage others to connect with, because, these honorable, positive, virtuous values are actually what produces beautiful art. That is sort of like the grounding force behind it. So I 100% believe that. That's why all the art today is so ugly. And I believe that all forms of art, I'm a painter, obviously, but all forms of art, it is a potential antidote to cure the lack of reverence that our culture has today. Like, if I mention the word reverence in our culture, we don't have any of that.
Yeah.
We have irreverence. It's all across the board. There's no sense of aesthetics pointing us towards feeling that there's anything sacred in the world today.
Yeah.
So my whole thing is like, well, that's where art comes in. You know what I'm saying? It's not so much conversation and discourse. That's where beautiful works come in, and that's where the idea of beauty comes in. And we got guys like St. Thomas Aquinas, all the church fathers. They always wrote about how, Christians should utilize beauty as an important tool for society and culture. And I feel like that's been forgotten. And it's not anything new. It's sort of like, it's about taking it back. It's about doing what we used to do. So I do agree with that sentiment. And, it's even more important today because, man, we are a sick society, man.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to have you. I know you and I agree on most things, but since the last time I saw you, you spoke at our event and all that. What are you thinking about what's happening in the world, especially in America today? It has totally gotten worse, way worse. What are your feelings? What are you thinking about it? And do you think it would ever turn around?
Well, the first thing I will say is there's really three things that need to be fixed for everything else to circumstantially follow its wake. And the first thing is the belief in God is pretty much absent.
Yeah.
This notion that there's higher order that we need to submit to, that's the first thing that needs to be fixed. The second thing that needs to be fixed is female sexual promiscuity.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much rampant and all across the board. And then the last thing that needs to be fixed is our cultural pillars. So all the institutional pillars like education, art, Hollywood, entertainment. So the fact that all three are owned by the Dark One, the fact that the three most pivotal pillars for social cohesion basically do not belong or not run by good people, sort of tells you everything and where we are culturally. And you're right, things are only getting worse. And I will tell you right now, nowadays, what bothers me even more than the obvious acceleration of the clown world buffoonery of the radical left is the fact that people on the right are also being basically cowards and showing their hypocrisy. I think that's, to me, more distasteful lately, because like we kind of expect the basement from the left. We kind of expect that. But on the right, when push comes to shove, they're sort of just showing that they're spineless jellyfish. and what I've come to see now is, and I hate to do this because I could probably lose following and I could lose support for this, but I do say this because I believe it is true. I think that many people on the right, they need to first work on what they can actually control locally. And what I mean by that is, often people on the right, and I know this is a political show, so I'm trying to say this with respect, but often people on the right, it's like they're playing Dungeons and Dragons. That's how they talk about politics. Yeah. And I'm almost like, well, while you're doing this, you're over 25% body fat percentage. You have familial baggage. You're not talking to your parents anymore. You don't have you know what I'm saying? It's almost like you want to first make sure you have your actual local priorities in line before you're so. It's almost like they're coping at that point. Like they're wearing like a TradCon LARPing costume. Like, look at me, and like this is my beliefs. I'm like, yeah, but you're fat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like
no, you're totally right, man.
That's the reason why we're disconnected from our values. We're just speaking out in like this meta ephemeral way, and that's why like I mean I can always comment on what I believe is just and right and moral in a political sense, but I'm also like lately I've been kind of stepping away from that, not because I'm not speaking and I'm a free speech absolutist, but much more because too many people on quote unquote my side, they don't even have the shit together. So I'm kind of like I'm for it. They should still use their voice, of course, if they see evil, but they got to get to work. Yeah. Like I mean, I'll tell you right now, like the fact that they're like this is manhood hour, right? So manhood hour. Well, we should be responsible for what you first have under your control, your health, your familial condition, and your passion, and like your connection with high culture and art, and this is, I feel like people don't even have that in sync. So why should I even care about your political disposition, whether you're a liberal, conservative, libertarian, classical liberal, whatever you want to identify as? I almost don't care. Like, it's almost like, yeah, I'll stick with the weight thing. It's like, if you're fat, I don't care. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You're absolutely 100%, man, and I agree. And that's why maybe I'm wrong. I don't see that I'm wrong, but I don't believe my country is ever coming back because it looks like everything is becoming one, and it's not one for the good. It's just trash after trash after trash. And
wow. Jesse, when did you come to that conclusion? Because I mean, the last time we spoke, we had a little bit of hope, right? but I gotta say that like. I've kind of come to the same conclusion, man. Yeah. And I'm not trying to encourage people to go into the corner and sulk and be emotional and depressed. Right. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
You could still go out fighting for what you believe is right. But looking at it from a bird's eye view, it does look like it's kind of done.
Yes.
It's morally, it's over. But like, I'm still going to do what I believe is right because that is how I can stay in sync. But I hear you, man. I think I'll tell you right now, the biggest indicator of this is the fact that you see all these red pill dating relationship podcasts and all that. the reason why is because we do live in like this weird post-gender society now.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of done.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like people have accepted this. And if that's the case, then the incentive for men to want to even make it's basically making men automatically into antinatalists.
Yes.
And I almost can't blame them for that, even though I know it's non-biblical because of the conditions, the circumstances of the culture. So I do believe we are in, I hate to use the word trans, but we're in a transitory phase of life where it's going to be interesting because the death of the West is not going to be Hollywood, fire and brimstone, fire coming from the sky. It's going to be more like the fact that we have a less than, we have like a 70% population replacement rate.
Yes.
So, but that's still meaning that we're not going to be able to continue the species. So, you know, it's like when Rome fell, they had, most houses had huge wine cellars and they were having orgies. So they were, you know, they're morally deranged, and then the resources weren't a problem. They had plenty of food. They had full bellies. There was an obesity problem at that time. So it wasn't a lack of resources, but their morals just went so low that the fabric that undergirds that society eventually made them fall. And I think that's what people don't realize. Like the fall of a civilization doesn't mean like we're in like this depression state of panic. Like we went through a depression as a country and we survived it. And now here we are.
Yeah.
We're going to be so morally decayed that we're just going to basically wither away from the inside.
It's hard to believe it, man. And this is why I've been telling people for a while now is that they got to start working on themselves as individuals in order to survive in this world today. And because the way things are going, they're only going to get worse and not better. And if you don't have perfect peace, if you're not working on yourself, you're not going to be able to handle it. More and more reports of people, young people committed suicide. The attack upon men through the roof now. It's not even, I mean, it's like the men just have given up. And both parties are now one. And it just, the anger and the hatred in the country is out of control. It's just a mess.
Let me add to that. Let me add to what you're saying because, like, there's two sides of me when I hear this. Because did you know that 50% of men today, 50% of young men, in other words, millennials and Zoomers and some Gen X, they're not only not seeking relationships or disinterested in marriage and checked out altogether of even creating families.
Yeah.
They're not even pursuing women sexually. We're talking about straight heterosexual men. They're not even seeking women now, 50, which is crazy. Like, if you think about when you were in your, like, 19, 20, 21, you had so much testosterone and horniness and drive that a woman could walk by and it'd drive you crazy for the rest of the day. The fact that 50% of men are disinterested tells you a lot about the culture.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you that, you know, this is a complete gynocentric frame in the world we're in. But I got to say, like, while I think that is obviously, not even I think, we know that that's wrong for passing on a legacy and continuing this world, I also can't blame them, Jesse. And it's not because I'm saying it's okay, but it's because we live in a complete warped society where masculinity is demonized, where they have no encouragement. And if they want to get married, they can go through this whole divorce system and become like fiscally raped, more or less. So I don't really blame them at the same time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
So it's, I'm kind of stuck in this weird place where I'm like, we know what's wrong. We know what's the answer. But we see that the pile of manure is just so high that when you send a young man to clean this up, he goes, well, I'm just going to walk away. you know? I don't blame him.
What a mess. I don't blame him either, man. I want to know, the last time we talked, there was an attack upon the Asian people in this country, and it was mostly done by blacks in San Francisco and other areas. They would rob them and knock them out in the streets and things like that. And at one time, I would hear the Asian people speaking out against that. Even though I never heard them say out loud, it's the blacks that are doing this, not the whites for the most part. Do you have an inner sense of what's happening with that now? Have they given up on
So
that?
the last time we spoke, I was living in New York City,
Yeah.
and that's where it was happening quite a bit.
Right.
I've left that hellhole. I'm in Northern Virginia now.
Oh,
but,
nice.
Yeah, but what we know, Jesse, is that like stereotypes exist for a reason, and the only way we can actually absolve these negative characteristics is by us openly talking about them, because you can't change anything until you address it, right?
Right.
So what we got to understand is that it's not racism. We need to also look at it. Look, I call it, what is it? Race realism. Like, race is a factor, and it's definitely not a wholesale write-off of anyone. I'm not pigeonholing an expectation of people. Like, because you're black, you're supposed to do this. Because I'm Asian, I'm supposed to do this. You know, I meet an individual, but general data gives us perspective.
Right.
And when we look at the rate of black crime on Asians and white people, by the way, it's incomparable.
Yes.
You know, it's a joke. It's like seeing an 800-pound gorilla versus like a hamster. like it's the crime rate is very high, and people are just afraid of talking about it because, you know, they just don't want to seem like they're bigoted or whatever. But I also am starting to see that we're getting to the point where people are just fed up and they're just going to start talking openly. So there could be a blessing in disguise. Again, do I believe that, you know, we're going to see this through? I'd be happy to die hoping so. So, but I think that people are starting to talk about it more openly. Yeah, man, you know, blacks gotta get it together, brother.
I know the blacks, man. I was at the post office yesterday, and a guy saw me there. He's like, "Wow, I watch your show. You from the YouTube channel, yeah?" He's like, "You talk about things that are very interesting, right?" And so I asked. It was a long line, so I asked this guy who happened to be black. I'm like, "What's wrong with the blacks?" And when I asked him that, all hell broke loose in the post office. There's older black women.
You know, I'll share an anecdotal thing too. Like, you know, I'm flying everywhere. You know that. And then
Yes.
I just went to Tijuana to donate some art for this to this cancer hospital. But I gotta tell you, man, like here's what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm not trying to be bigoted or angry, but because we've allowed the divide and conquer strategy to be so implanted in our brains and brainwashed, every time I sit on a plane, I'm sorry I think this, but when I see like some like baggy, like disheveled looking black person walking down the aisle, I always go like, oh, I hope they're not sitting next to me. And it's not.
I know what you mean. You don't have to explain. Don't explain. I totally understand
it's not their skin color, brother. But like I have collectors that are like classy, upright black people. You see what I'm saying? So it's like but it's more so that like I don't blame the woman in New York City who's in the elevator when there's some Asian guy who comes in, she's just whatever, and then if some like black guy with dreads and that comes in like all like you know with a certain demeanor and she holds onto her purse a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if I blame her for that.
I don't.
Because you sort of pass.
She better hold that purse.
Yes, yeah. The brain is a pattern recognition machine, right?
Yeah.
So if you give us patterns, then we're going to denote that in the world. So it's not a racism thing. It's like I don't think it is wrong for us to catch patterns and to share what we've come to see. And those patterns can be broken, by the way, but they can only be broken if we're able to talk about them.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, if we can't have this kind of discussion, then they will only continue. So to my Nubian brothers out there, I'm with you. Okay, Akasama Kalam, we're good. Okay, but there's some shit there where it's like we need to stop acting like, you know, just because you have a certain skin color or a background or cultural background, you get to act like a buffoon. Yeah, and I'm just tired of it, you know.
You know what's interesting to me too, and it's a sign of fear and everything. When I was growing up, white people were not afraid, for the most part, to speak up and disagree and yet get along, right? And as a result, the country was amazing because black people at that time, they treated people the way they would like to be treated. It wasn't about the skin color when I was growing up. And white people were not afraid to disagree with the blacks or anyone else, and everything was fine. I never imagined one day that the white people would completely shut down and not speak up and defend themselves at all in the right way. And as a result, in their own country, this country was founded by white people, by white men who were encouraged by God and created the greatest country on this side of heaven. So this is their home. I never imagined that white men would become so afraid that they would even speak up in their own home, that they would allow the people of color who are only destroying it and not making it better, they're only making it worse. I didn't know that white people would become so afraid that they would not speak up, protect their children, their wives, their family, and their country. I never imagined that that could happen. And now the whole goal is to get rid of Christianity and get rid of white people in their own country.
Yeah, white men have been targeted with an onslaught of media control.
Yes.
To be feminized.
Yep.
They've just been targeted to the nth degree to become as feminized as possible. And man, I guess if we look at the analogy of the Garden of Eden, and we look at Eve's narcissistic vanity tempting her to actually listen to the snake, that spirit of what a woman is, I guess white women are like very successful in that regard. because look at what white men have become. It's like in a way the white women have won. The reason why America is where we are is because white women have won. Yeah. Like if you look at all these like the most rabid protesters on the streets and they can be as young as like 17. They don't even care. There's no fear. They just feel like I'm entitled to it and I walk out and do it. They're liberal white chicks. Amazing. So it's pretty crazy, man. I think the solution has always been the same solution, but just more. Yeah. Which is more free speech, being a free speech absolutist, openly discussing these ideas, caring about the truth, standing up for what's right, and men being men. It's always going to be the solution because that's actually what builds civilizations in the first place. Absolutely. That's what undergirds the society. The challenge, though, is that the men simply just don't care today is a problem. And the reason why they don't care, once again, it does make sense on their behalf. Again, I'm not telling them to be losers and give up, but it's almost like, it's like basic arithmetic, Jesse. It's like, if nothing is sacred and nothing is pure, then if some unassimilating culture comes, whatever, through immigration, comes to my land and tries to take my woman, but they have like 100 body count, I don't care. They're already garbage. Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of like, I don't really blame them because like they don't even have the impetus and desire to protect or provide for them in the first place, because women by their own actions and decisions have deemed themselves as lascivious garbage. Amazing. So that's the decision they've made. It's almost like...
Let me take a quick break. When I come back, I want you to tell the people how to get your artwork and your website.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we didn't even talk about my art. I'm an artist, by the way, guys.
Right. Back in a moment,
cool.
folks.
Yeah.
So I want to wind up here with author Kwon Lee, an amazing artist, and I want you to see some of his work. Also, tell the folks how to get your work. We're going to show some of it as well, but tell the people how to get it. Amazing work, man. And again, I'm not like really into art, but I really appreciate your work.
I appreciate that. And well, first thing is you don't have to be like educated in art and all that. That's a part of the psyop, by the way, because the left controls that. Art is for everyone. Art is for anyone to just go out and see. You don't have to read 20 books. Just go look at the work. It speaks for itself. Yeah. If you go to a museum, you see a placard with like a long description, you need like 3 paragraphs to explain the work of art. It tells you why, because beauty should be self-evident. Right. So anyone can appreciate art, and you can see my art at arthurkwonlee.com. If you want to collect, you can contact me. If you want to check out my online shop for the seasons, you let me know as well. We have some stuff there. But if you want to connect with me on my socials, I don't use Twitter that much. I'm really more of an Instagram guy. But so you can find me on Instagram at Arthur Kwon Lee for all things based aesthetics, and just keeping it real. And yeah, that's pretty much all I am. So
Amazing. Great work, man. I do want to ask you two quick questions before we go. What is Impressionism, and are you an Impressionist?
So an Impressionism is a French painting movement, and the idea was of trying to capture like the movement of nature through the paintings. And the Impressionists did influence me quite a bit. What I will say is that there's two polarities when it comes to looking at art. There's like realism, and then there's abstract expressionism. One is more loose and chaotic and control. It's non-representational, and the other is like trying to capture life very realistically.
Yeah.
Impressionism is meeting in the middle, right? So you're capturing life. It's rendered. It's you can recognize what it is, but there's a movement and certain like gesture and flow and color to it. So in many ways, yeah, I am an impressionist in a way, but the figures that I paint with the style of impressionism is often biblical imagery or masculine imagery. And in a way, I'm an artist for the warrior class. So that includes crusaders and fighters and veterans. So those are my collections usually. A lot of, masculine people. But in a way, I guess I'm an impressionist, yeah.
Amazing. Nice stuff, man. We're showing it right now. After seeing your work, and then sometimes if you're looking at a news show or something, and they're showing these people who are going to these places to look at art, and it's like somebody just throw paint on a piece of paper and call it art or something dumb. But the people who pretend that they're really into art, and they look at this stuff, they go, "Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh, that's the real deal." Are they acting out? Are they pretending? Do they really see that stuff as art?
They're completely brainwashed in the same way. Listen, only a person who believes that gender is a social construct, that children can pick their gender as children and chemically castrate themselves, that race, that we live in a prejudiced, racist, systemic system. Like, only a person who believes all of that diatribe can believe, a splatter of paint on a canvas. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Is art, because they're that crazy. So my point is that we have this weird thought that aesthetics is separate to the philosophy that they hold or the beliefs that they hold.
Right.
They're not. Ugly aesthetics come from ugly people. Yeah. And this applies to physiognomy. This applies to the condition of their heart and their purity.
Yeah.
So it's like, beauty. It's always beauty against ugliness. That's the thing that nobody tends to keep track of. So
I saw on the local news here the other day, they were showing this art show thing, and they had gorillas pretend like they were painting art. They put the paint there, the gorilla would step in the paint, and then put it on the paper, and the people were like, "Oh, that's so nice. That's so beautiful." The gorillas are painting. I'm like, dummy, the gorilla is really not painting. The gorilla just stepping in the paint, but they pretend like they thought it was real.
Well, that's the only way they can get black people to actually make art, I guess.
Amazing. Arthur, it's amazing to talk to you again, man. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you. And the world gone crazy. It's totally gone crazy, but
it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
And you know what? Just we have to address the realities as we see them. And
yes.
I know your audience is heavily tradcon, but guys, like, you got to work on yourselves. You gotta get under 25% body fat. You got to start connecting, becoming actually cultured and not just living in an echo chamber. And there's a lot of work to be done.
Arthur, thank you so much, man, and Merry Christmas. And we'll talk again. I appreciate you. And keep it up, man.
My man.
Keep up the
Cheers.
work. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Amazing. Arthur Kwon Lee. Check him out, all right? You're going to love his work, folks. You're going to love it.